Bum bum bum. It's D&D Stories. Hi everyone, this is Tom the Geek. I'm going to bring you a group of D&D stories. This is really a bunch of stories that don't take place in the same story arc as Quests and Contemplations. It's really different, to be completely honest. It's might have some of the same characters, might not. I'm still DM, but everyone wanted to play before I got the whole storyline set up, so I just threw together a couple of mini, dungeon crawls, really, just so they could kill stuff. So, this is a story I like to call the Ring of Wealth. Now, it starts out with a local baron hiring a ranger. Half-elf ranger, sorry. And he just lost his wedding ring, and his wife will kill him if he doesn't get it back before she finds out. So, what he does is he hires this half-elf ranger to go down and find it. He thinks it's been taken to a local abandoned tower by a group of miscreants, like kobolds, stuff like that, who caused trouble. And they probably grabbed it off the ground and took it there. They hoard a bunch of stuff, he says. So, she goes into the local tavern, kind of kicks down the door, in that half-elf fashion, and says, "Hey, I got a mission, guys. I need 3 good people to come with me." So a bunch of volunteers pop up, and she picks a human rogue, a halfling rogue, and a gnome bard. Great team, right? Okay, so after they work out, she's in charge. She makes sure everyone knows this, right? She goes on, and she picks out where they're going to go. They go to this tower first, of course, because it's the most logical place. So they enter, and after searching the main entry room, they find not really anything. So they go through a room. That door's locked, of course, because I was the DM, and I had a thing for locked doors at the time. So they go in, and they unlock this door. None of the rogues had actually the ability to lockpick. So what they did is they kind of jerry-rigged a way in by using a crossbow bolt to break the lock. Once they got in there, they ran into, I think, 4 or 5 kobolds. It wasn't really that hard of a fight, except they got a couple of really bad rolls, and the kobolds got a couple of really good rolls. So, when it was all done, everyone came out okay, but it was a little bit harder of a fight than I was expecting for a bunch of adventurers and 5 or 4 kobolds. So, to be completely honest, I made a note to myself and said, yeah, we're not going to have them do that again. So they got to the next door, and I locked it. Again, locked doors. So they had to unlock it, break through. After going through a couple of rooms, they ran into a room with a couple more kobolds, I do believe. And what they did is the bard, who spoke Draconic, he picked that out of nowhere, right? He tried to talk to him. Well, talking to him didn't work out too well, and they had ended up having to fight them anyway. So they moved on after fighting them. They, of course, searched everyone for everything, got a couple of short spears, stuff like that. Nothing really worth anything, but they were saying, well, if this mission doesn't work out or if they can't find the ring, at least they're going to get something out of it, right? So they move on to the next room, which has an orc and 4 kobolds. Now, the bard does something to distract him. I believe he used one of his bardic songs. And he sang, and it kind of put everyone into a trance except for the orc. So everyone else kind of works their way over, and they decide to take on the orc while the kobolds are still in a trance, right? Makes sense. So they do this, and they make it. They defeat the orc pretty easily, 4-on-1. It was kind of an unfair fight, especially seeing as these are just your classic orcs, nothing special about them. And they defeat him. So they move on to the next guy. And that's when the kobolds wake up. They thought they might be able to slip out of the room, but they couldn't. So they have to fight the kobolds. Easy fight. One of them survives, though, and he escapes to the next room. So after doing a quick search of the room for anything valuable, nothing there. They quickly enter the next room, which is a long hallway. 30, 40, 50 feet long. Kind of weird in a tower, right? But nobody asked, so I didn't tell. Probably like a magic tower, though, if you want an explanation. So what they did after that was move on, and one of the rogues, my human rogue actually, he was afraid that I'd trapped the hallway, right? I mean, I guess it was kind of a logical assumption, but I hadn't. But he wouldn't go through that hallway until everybody else went through. So one by one, everyone went through, rolling perception checks, making sure there was no hidden traps. There was nothing. So when it came the bard's turn to go, he skipped halfway down the room, and then turned to the wall and started singing. He probably sang, I mean, in game terms, for 10, 15, even 30 minutes. But the human rogue did take his time to get past it, because he was, like, checking every crack for a trap. Because apparently I had something against this human rogue, right? So, I quickly got them done. They finally went into the next room, which the human rogue decided to kick in. He kicked in the door, right? He rolled a 20 on this kick. So he kicked it so hard, it flew open and smashed against the wall. Now this, of course, alerted everyone in the room they were there, right? So really stealthy, right, Rogue? He's learned his lesson. So he moved on, and everyone decided to fight who was in there, which I think was an orc and an orc sorcerer or something. So, I mean, it was a fair fight, or an orc bard. That's what it was, an orc bard. Really interesting guys to run into, because the orc bard was like half barbarian too. So, I mean, it was a fair fight. They put up a good fight. They finally defeated these orcs, and it took a while. And I do believe that the orc bard had some kind of instrument that our gnome bard wanted. So he, of course, went and grabbed it. And this is where I kind of threw a doozy at him, because I got tired of them sitting in the room. So that wall the bard was singing at, it swung open, leading to a secret passageway. But what came out of the secret passageway? A swarm, a giant swarm of carnivorous scarabs. Scarabs! Everyone was scared out of the world because, I mean, I threw scarabs at them, and nobody was expecting me to throw something like that at them. They had nothing to fight it. No torches, no one had any spells that could work against it. So, the ranger, the half-elf ranger, ran over to the door while everyone tried to run up these stairs that were at the back of the room. She ran over and pushed the door closed. Which, I mean, she risked her life to save them, and I mean, she had a good point, because, I mean, it was kind of her job. She was in charge. But she closed it, and then made a run for the door. So as they ran up the stairs, they got to the top of the stairs. It was like one of those spiraling staircases. They got to the top and found the door locked. And it was like, not like a lock you can pick, but it's like someone put a, like, 2x4 on the other side. So it was, like, stuck closed. And as they went through options, they heard the door downstairs get broken down by this scarab swarm. And as the scarab swarm began to eat everything on the first floor, once it was done with that, which it finished pretty quickly, it started working its way up towards them. Now, I think they were scared out of their minds. That was kind of the idea, so I'm not going to complain. But they moved on, and they, I think, had 2 or 3 rounds before the scarabs would get there and pretty much eat their souls. So, finally, one of them figured out that they could take their sword, and they shoved it between the wall and the door, and used everyone's strength to lift it, so that they could get the 2x4 on the other end off of the hold, so it wouldn't block their way anymore. They immediately bashed through the door, closed it up, barricaded it, and they found themselves in this room. And this room had all the treasures these guys had stolen. So they immediately first went and looked for their mission, the wedding ring. Well, as they were looking, they found an entire box of rings. Not wedding rings, just rings. So they grabbed that real quick. They grabbed it and made a run for it. But they realized they couldn't escape, because they had scarabs on one side, probably trying to still break down the door. It was a very strong door, by the way. And there was no other exits to the room. But there was a small window. You know, like a window even a medium-sized guy could stick through, but it was still a small window. So what they did is they found a bunch of, like, silk drapes, ripped them up, tied them into a rope, and rappelled, pretty much, down the 5 or 6 stories down to the ground. From there, they grabbed the box and whatever jewels they had thrown into their pockets, their backpacks, everything. I mean, we had 2 rogues, so trust me, they grabbed everything. And they made a run for it, figuring, you know what, if those scarabs got out, it could be trouble. Turns out the tower was magically kept, and those scarabs were kind of a security system, like, you know, the self-destruct switch, kind of. So it wasn't going to do anything to them. But they were scared. That was my plan. They made it back to the Baron and dropped the box of rings and said, "Find yours." And once he found it, he said, "Well, what are you going to do with these other rings?" And they said, "We're going to go sell them. Now give us our money and we're out of here." And that was really the end of the story of the Ring of Wealth. I know it was kind of short, but by the time we got to the room, I was kind of running out of time. Someone had to go home. And in truth, it was getting kind of late for us because it was still school. So we all got done with it. Everyone had fun. I was told that I shouldn't do any more locked doors. I agreed. And that went out pretty well. So, that's the end of the Ring of Wealth. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, please, if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe to my channel, and I promise I will be getting more stuff out as soon as possible. As soon as I get the art for the first episode of Quests and Contemplations, I will be posting. It might take me a bit. Give me a week, maybe 2. My artist is back in school now, so I can't rely on them to do, you know, drop school to do something for me when, I mean, even I'll admit school is more important than this, although I do love doing this. Now, so like and subscribe, and have a great day, guys. If you're still interested, and I have other things on my channel, please look at it, and tell your friends about my channel if you enjoyed this and you think they will. If you have any questions, comments, pop them down below, and I will be seeing you next time, guys and gals. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom the Geek, signing off.